Module 1.2, Prospect Brand Experience Journey. From the time your prospect, any of your prospects within your buyer group become aware of your brand until the time they actually write the check, whatever that period of time is, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, that whole time span, what are you doing to interact with those prospects? Because it's not just one prospect, it's your buyer group. And they will be interacting with your website for sure. You can be 100% assured that they will come to your website. We're going to get into that in Module 8. It's much more about what needs to happen on your website. But here we want to talk about what those prospects are experiencing with your solution, with your brand, and your marketing materials. From the time they start out, they just have a question like, what is this? They become aware of your brand until they actually write the check, and they're like, yeah, this looks good. This looks like a great fit for us. Here's my money. Let's go. Okay. What happens in there? You've heard about the funnel, the marketing funnel, okay? And the marketing funnel is a simplification. There's a lot of different funnels, right? Different kinds of funnels. Right now we're talking about a general overall quote unquote brand experience funnel, okay? So this is how your prospects experience your company and the presentation of your solution, whether it's a product or software, whatever it is, during their journey to becoming a customer. We talk about, and this is basic marketing 101 stuff. For the people who are more experienced, you might get a little bored with this, but I'm going to touch on some points that are a little more nuanced as we dig into this. But just to cover it quickly for the newbies on board, you have awareness, interest, desire, and action. Okay, and typically this is tofu, not the kind of tofu you have with with sushi and miso soup and stuff like that. So your tofu is top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Okay, so you have your tofu, mofu, bofu. I know this is weird. It's just the industry jargon stuff. The reason I even take the time to talk about this is mainly for a vocabulary standpoint. We're seriously going to dig into the content of the prospect journey in Module 6. We get into a lot of detail and a lot of rationale, and I give you a lot of templates and strategies to work with there. But what you want to start doing right now is go into your analog idea catcher system, otherwise known as your notebook, and start scribbling out some ideas around this. And even if you're a more sophisticated marketer, you might be a chief marketing officer, for example, for an enterprise company, the things you want to start thinking about here are in 1.1, just the previous lesson. You want to start thinking about the journey for the different personalities, personas within the buyer group, because their journey is different from each other. There's a lot of overlap with their journeys of your 4 different, 8 different, whatever it is. I wouldn't, when you start planning and building content for that buyer group, it really starts to get overwhelming if you have more than 6. So I would say identify between 3 to 6 of the core, most critical personas within that buyer group and start to work with those in your strategies. Here, and this might start to freak you out a little bit, but don't freak out about this. So these are the different types of content, and I'll read through some of these, that you're going to have in a typical funnel experience as to what your prospect experiences and when they sort of experience that at the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, the bottom of the funnel. And for the newbies, why this is a funnel is because at the top of the funnel, you're going to have outreach campaigns like advertising, events, things like that. And you're going to have a lot of people in there who are not really interested in your solution. They're not potential buyers. They're kind of interested in the subject matter. They're aware of your brand. They become aware of it. And then those filter down as some of those people start to consider you for a serious solution to seriously do business with. They're going to consume deeper and deeper content as they get more and more interested in what you have to offer. So they travel through here and more people fall out and fall out and fall out until, say you start with 100 who become aware of your brand, maybe 50 of them will go to the website and maybe look at a video. And maybe out of those 50, maybe 20 of them will go into desire, where they actually start to look at a data sheet, or they start to compare your content with other content. And then out of those 20, maybe 3 of them will ask for a demo or a one-on-one presentation. Okay, so that's the basic funnel concept. And why I warned you not to freak out about this is that you may be thinking, especially if you're a more experienced marketer, you might be thinking, well, do I really need to build a brand experience funnel for every single one of those prospects within the buyer group? So you have 6 people in your buyer group. Do I need 6 different email campaigns? Do I need 6 different pages on my website for all those different buyer groups? Do I need 6 different solution briefs and 6 different kinds of presentations for each one of them? Okay, so obviously the answer to that is no. There are very few marketing departments that, even with the enterprise, with the big companies, that have close to an unlimited budget where you can just set up a complete experience for every micro segmentation, across your buyer group. There's going to be a lot of overlap with your materials, with what you're going to produce. Just for the newbies on board here, all this type of content that relates to the journey, you're going to be creating that. And I will help you. We're going to go into, like I said, when we go into Module 6, I'm going to dig into a lot of these and the templates, and that's where it starts to get more creative, the creative part of the whole course series here, Creative B2B Marketing. So far, not much creativity, more of the basic foundation. And the reason for that is the first 3 modules are basic foundational marketing concepts, best practices, and framework. Originally, when I put this program together, I was just going to focus on the creative part and because that's the fun part for me, and that's my unique superpower that I bring into business-to-business marketing. So I was just going to do Module 4, which is the highly creative module, and start building out from there. But what I started to find when I started going through LinkedIn and looking at different job descriptions and expectations of the different chief marketing officers, from down to marketing managers, marketing directors, all that. And then I joined some Reddit groups and started reading through the comments there. So I started doing some outreach and research of my own. What I started finding is a pretty big gap in knowledge and solid understanding of business-to-business marketing within these groups. And even the CMOs, one of the CMOs I worked with previously, was not doing this stuff. After I became aware of all that, I thought, well, I can teach you guys the really creative, fun stuff where you'll get a spark of, you'll get a blip on the radar, so to speak. You'll get a spark of interest and engagement, but that is not going to be consistent if you're not building it on a solid foundation of best practices and understanding the principles and how these parts all fit together and work together, once you build that foundation to work from, the creative stuff is a layer on top of that where you can have a lot of fun and a lot of experimentation. You can push the envelope, blow the box open, and do some edgy things. But if you do those things without a foundation, you're going to kind of create a mess for yourself, because your analytics are going to look really goofy. They're not going to make much sense to you. You'll have sparks of success here and there, and you won't really understand why. And then you'll have some failures, and some things are going to crash, and you're not going to understand why. That's why I'm digging into such basic stuff as this. Like, everybody knows what the funnel is, okay? Like, even like you could learn this stuff in, like just your first community college class, or whatever, just online. But I do want to read through some of these quickly, and the reason that I put this out here is mainly for vocabulary purposes. So when I'm talking about, hey, we need to get some top of funnel stuff out there, or we're going to do some very creative things with bottom of funnel, which most people don't even think about. Like, bottom of funnel, like you're practically ready to sign the check. Why would you need to do anything creative? Or even afterwards, after your clients, your existing clients, what types of creative things can you do there to keep them engaged with your company and to increase loyalty? Okay, at this day and age where you have so much client hopping from vendor to vendor, there's definitely things you can do to stimulate loyalty. So we'll want to talk about that too. And typically, your top of funnel things are things that are more aggressive, things that actually are outreach. You'll have email campaigns. Those are events, where events are great because you're already having the person's right in front of you to have a conversation with. You can start a conversation immediately. Ads, these are typically display ads, like LinkedIn ads, things, not only display ads, but also PPC, pay-per-click ads, so Google listings. And you want to show up where your prospects expect to find you. Be where your prospects expect to find you. Okay, so we'll talk about more about that in later. Public relations, a story. If your company is featured in Forbes magazine, or business journal, something like that. That can be a cool way for people to discover your brand. And then later, as people become more interested, they're definitely going to go to your website. They may check out some videos, some webinars. Webinars are great for getting conversations started. They may download some PDFs, such as case studies. As they move further, deeper into your brand experience, further down the funnel, they go into desire, which is, hey, they're starting to consider you. Like, this could work for us. Maybe this solution is something we want to look at. But, I will tell you that almost every company engaged with business-to-business purchases, even if they feel 90%, if they want to go with you, they're still going to do research and compare you against your competitors. And they'll probably do some kind of matrix. So these are the features, this is the price, these are things we like, maybe the top 3 contenders, 5 contenders, whatever it is. They may even do a request for proposal. If it's a seriously big contract, you'll probably have a request for proposal presentation with guidelines and very specific criteria that you need to put together to pitch for the business. They're going to move through desire, where you start to get deeper into that. The reason I bring all that up with the request for proposal and all of that is because that's when you are in comparison mode. Okay, so when your prospect starts to have some desire, like maybe this could be a good fit, they're going to start comparing you against your competition. mainly because of the psychology that we just talked about in the previous video with 1.1, where we talked about this is based on fear, right? Nobody wants to stand out and make a wrong decision and be the one that everybody points to, if and be the oddball out in this whole buying process. When they do a comparison, and they're trying to get people on board within the team, they're trying to get consensus within the buying group, and typically your champion is the person who pulls this together. They will do the comparison, like I said, even if they're 90%, they're sure they're going to go with you, they'll do that to show, maybe to get to that 100% point, to show maybe to the chief financial officer to say, look, for all the value that's added here, the price point, isn't so bad, or this brand is so well known that, even with all these other bullet points here, they'll make it justify their case. Even though, this is an important point, even though the buyer group is motivated by a large degree of fear-based, not wanting to fail, sort of mitigating the wrong decision, which is an emotional reaction, right? So even though there's decision-making around that emotion, in the business world, you never talk about that. Nobody talks about that. In the business world, it has to appear as if it is logical. So you're going to get a spreadsheet, and you're going to see columns of comparisons and logical things like features and numbers and percentages and costs and benefits, okay? That's just how it works. Nobody sits in the conference room and says, well, I feel really good about this brand. I've seen their ads a lot on LinkedIn, and they're really kind of cool looking, and I just kind of have this gut feeling that I like them. Like, nobody's going to say that. They're going to say, well, this makes sense, and we like this analysis over here, and that makes sense, and so the whole thing makes sense, and we're going to go with that. Just be aware that they're going to jump through those hoops, and that's what it's going to look like on the inside when that's happening. So I've been on both sides of the game here. I have been on the corporate side when I've been marketing manager and directing things with different companies, where I am hiring marketers and advertisers, okay, professionals to market our business. And then I have been on the other side. I've been on the marketing side. I work for ad agencies and marketing agencies. Not only work for them, I founded 2 of them. And I know what it looks like from both perspectives. That's how come I can offer such a broad perspective in the course here that I'm teaching you, is because I've been on both sides of that. I know what it looks like when you're on the marketing side and you're trying to sell to that company, and you don't hear from them for 6 months. You don't even hear from them for like 3 months or whatever. You don't even get an email. You do a phone call, you get ghosted. It's like, well, what happened? What's going on over there? What is happening over there? And then 4 months later, completely out of the blue, someone from the company will hit you up with some emergency scenario. Can you do a meeting 7 o'clock on Monday morning? New York time. We've got we got this big trade show coming up and this event and da 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 da. So that's just how it is. That's just how You guys know this. If you're on the corporate side, you know how it works. So this is the scenario. Okay, so you've got your email, events, ads, your website video. Okay, they get down into the desire section. We talked about that. So then when they get into the demo section, you're looking at one-on-one presentations, trial period, whatever your business model is. If it's a self-serve type of thing where they just buy your solution on the internet, like, oh, we have 100 employees and here's the option, just click this and give us your credit card and you're good to go. There are those types of products, but the more, like I said before, the higher up products, like anything over $100,000 is not going to be sold on a website with a credit card. Those are going to happen with meetings, demonstrations, presentations, probably a few of those. And there are things that marketing can do, even at the bottom end of the funnel, to help the sales team a lot. And we can help the sales team a lot at the top of the funnel also. And I'll talk about some of those things later, and we get into module 6. Just give you the basics here of what the brand experience scenario is. What is your prospect experiencing about your brand? Okay, they're getting emails from you. They might get a newsletter from you. They'll go to the website. What did they see? What are they exploring? They may start to interact with with their colleagues and say, hey, here's a link to the product page on this vendor we're thinking about using. Go check them out. So that's what you hope is happening, right? One of the best things that can happen in the buyer group dynamic is when you have a champion on the inside who takes some of your content, such as what I call a solution brief, and we'll talk about this more, but it's like a summary of basically what's on your website, but it's a one-page summary of your solution, what it is. And if you have somebody on the inside in the buyer group who takes that solution brief, downloads it from the internet, or maybe a salesperson emails it to them directly and says, hey, I thought this might be useful for you, that goes in, and if that champion circulates that to the chief marketing officer, the CEO or the vice president of operations, the IT director, the other people within your buying group, that is one of the best things that can happen to your scenario here of going from what is this into writing the check, okay? Because it is instant credibility. When a sheet from your content is circulated by other people within the company, especially if it is a higher level person, like a vice president of operations or the CEO, who is circulating it to their underlings, okay, their directors, their managers, whatever, they're definitely going to look at that, and they're definitely going to start interacting with your brand, and it does really good things for you. Never underestimate the power of the one-pager. And I'll probably do a YouTube video on that exact subject, actually. Anyway. You have the vocabulary here. You have the theory of how this basically works. And now, what we're going to do, to be honest with you, this isn't how any of this works. The main reason I did this was to show you the vocabulary of top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel when we start to talk about the different content. But in actuality, this isn't how any of this works at all. Okay. This is how it really works. So instead of this nice linear progression of your prospects going from a Google ad to your website to a video to a case study to a one-on-one demo, which sometimes does happen, because the time period is so long, you've got your 6-month, 8th month, 12 months, whatever it is, there can be a lot of interaction with your content and the buyer group personas. We've got, say, your CEO over here, your IT director, your chief marketing officer, your HR person. One of them might experience some of your top of funnel content first, and then never go into it again until it's time to write the check at the bottom of the funnel. Okay, that's pretty common actually for people higher up on the food chains. You might have a vice president of operations or a chief financial officer. The chief financial officer, for example, may not see any of your top of funnel content. Chief financial officer may just get an email from the CEO that says, hey, the marketing, chief marketing officer is thinking about checking out this software solution. Here's a link to their presentation, but let me know what you think. Or we're going to have a presentation, one-on-one session next week. Why don't you drop in, let us know what you think. Your CFO may never even see the top of funnel stuff. He may just go straight to the website and say, okay, what is this? What does this company do? And then boom, he's in the straight bottom of funnel. So he may have only seen some mid-level stuff and some bottom of funnel stuff. Meanwhile, other people are going to go round and round with things during those months. They may go to your mid-funnel content to check things out, especially an IT director, probably go on there and want to see some technical things going on, and then may not interact with anything again until you're at an event. So maybe you're at a trade show, and then IT director says, oh yeah, I checked out your guys' data sheet, it looks pretty good. Here you are at the trade show, and you may open up another conversation in person, in a live reaction. The way this really works is this can be a scramble. We just call it the flywheel. And you still have the categories of content. You still have a tofu content, right? Your top of funnel advertising events, things like that. You still have the middle of funnel content, your videos, your case studies, your things that people can sink their teeth into a little bit. Your bottom of funnel, you'll have some sales enablement things there. You may have some battle cards for your salespeople, and which I don't know if you know what those are, but those help with the comparison part of the conversation. They help give the salespeople tips on how to overcome opposing arguments during their one-on-one presentation. Be aware that the brand experience of your prospects is seldom just a really neat, clean, linear experience from an overall brand standpoint, okay? Now there are cases, many cases, where the experience is very linear, and that's a campaign experience. Because of the complex interaction of the different prospects within your buyer group, it is very difficult to accurately measure attribution. In other words, did your IT guy decide that he was okay with your brand and he was going to support your brand after he downloaded the case study? Or was it when he went to the website and he read your FAQ section about the different applications that your solution interacts with? Was it when he had a one-on-one he was in one of the sales presentations and he just liked the salesperson, just had a good vibe about the company and how they presented themselves? You don't know. It's like, so attribution is very difficult and complex, and I know it is the bane of every marketing department, every marketing person, is to justify your own existence. How do you explain to upper leadership, your CEO, your CFO, your vice presidents, that they should keep paying you to do what you do? There's a whole module on analytics where we dig into that, but it does get tricky, and this is one of the dynamics that makes attribution and even analytics very tricky. Now, you're definitely going to analyze interactivity. You're going to analyze engagement of all your different marketing assets and your campaigns, because it's critical that you understand what's happening with those, like how how they're working. Are they not working? Should you pay money to do more of those, more money and time, or should you just stop altogether? And we'll talk more about that later. But just be aware that you don't really know and you can't really control what happens with that dynamic. Don't let what you don't have stop you from doing what you can do with what you do have. So what you can do, good marketing assets out there that add value to the different prospects within the buyer group. And that's what you're going to be doing. You want to go into your idea sketcher and start sketching out ideas for possible email campaigns, possible downloadable PDF sheets, for possible types of content that overlaps with several of these buyers. For example, obviously your website. Okay, you're not going to build a separate website for each of your prospects. You have one website, but the content on your website can appeal to the different prospects within the buyer group. The funnel is a flywheel. That's how it works when it all gets rolling. And this concludes 1.2.